I.
S.
N. E.
Y. Oh my god. Ow!
Ducktales to Ducktales.
Hey, it's Doug!
Excuse me, Mr. Dink, I grill.
You grill? You grill?
Why did Disney buy this show from Nickelodeon? A long time ago, before Viacom, now called Paramount, owned Nickelodeon, Nickelodeon was its own network. One thing that I've noticed about the big three networks is that all of their first shows suck. I know the saying first is the worst, second is the best, but this is ridiculous. And I'm using that entire cliche in a serious manner here. Disney started off with the Wuzzles. It sucks. Cartoon Network started off with the Moxie Show. It was bizarre as shit. Fun to make fun of, but only lasted one episode. And their first full show, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, was completely boring, only interesting when it interviewed the right people. And of course, Nick's first Nicktoon, Doug, might just be the most boring cartoon ever. Well, actually, the Casa Grandes takes that cake. Doug is a show about a character named Doug Funny, because giving yourself the name Funny automatically makes you not funny. I laugh more at the comedian in Amphibia with a one-liner than the entirety of Doug.
I just don't know what to do. Should I quit my office job to pursue my passion of stand-up comedy? Lord, send me a sign! Hey, have you guys heard the one about the lady who probably just made a really bad decision?
This is still a cliche show. You want to know how cliche it is? The first episode is about the Funny family moving to a new town, which is the most cliche thing that you can do for a first episode.
Population 20,001. I guess the one is me.
It's even more cliche to tell you the harsh truth on how this came about. Jim Jenkins created sketches in his art book in the 1980s, which is honestly one of the most cliche things to do to make a show based off of. Bunsen and the Beast had the same origin, oddly enough. Doug was actually going to be a book at first, but Nickelodeon liked it enough to have it be their first cartoon. This is nothing against the creator, it's just that it's usually generic to create a show like that. It doesn't end there. Buffington is based off his hometown of Richmond, Virginia. It's tacky to have your show based off of your own hometown. Can you imagine if I made a cartoon and the character came from Pennsylvania? The point of entertainment is to make it as loose as possible. The Simpsons takes place in Oregon, but you only know that if you do enough research on it, as they don't flat out say it in the show. I'm not saying this is bad. Turning Red did the same thing, with Domi Shi making the film take place in both her home area and timeline, as it took place in 2002 Canada, when she was 13. Look, I get it. Doug at one point in time was an important cartoon. It was the first show that Nickelodeon ever made, and with its success, it did help make the Nicktoons as a whole. And if it was just only the other two to exist, as in Ren and Stimpy and Rugrats, who knows? Nick may have not have been interested in telling more story-driven shows. It could have just been nothing but gross-out and baby shows for all we know. While I'm sure that we would still have gotten SpongeBob without Doug, I doubt that Hey Arnold would have existed without Doug. And things like Hey Arnold led to Nickelodeon taking even more chances with shows like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Doug was important. But you could be something important but not be good at the same time in the present. This is unfortunately how a lot of people feel about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. People like to say, it's not a movie that you watch for fun ever, and that it's a very boring snooze fest of a film. When in reality, it's still a really amazing movie, and not just because it's the first animation that I've ever seen. I ranked all of the Disney canon films earlier this year, so go watch that video if you want my full opinion on Snow White. Doug, on the other hand, is how I feel about the criticism towards Snow White. Doug is very boring, and I only watch this show if I absolutely have to. Like me reviewing this for my Disney marathon of Ducktales to Ducktales. Oh, speaking of Disney, why am I talking about the Nickelodeon version when this is a Disney marathon? Because the first 4 seasons of the show aired on Nick, and the final 3 aired on Disney, bringing in a total of 7 seasons of nothing. Not that Doug did well on Nick. This is a quote from the creator of Doug. Ren and Stimpy is getting so much attention because of John Crick-Lucy. I feel like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Considering that John K is now viewed as a scumbag, maybe being the squeaky wheel who gets the grease isn't so bad. Being boring is better than being viewed as a creep. Speaking of Ren and Stimpy, Doug himself is the same voice as Ren and Stimpy from Ren and Stimpy.
Ladies and gents, I give you the Cheezophone. Now we can talk to cheese anywhere in the world, regardless of their foreign tongue.
Therefore, in compensation for said breach, one, Doug Funny, shall serve an additional week of servitude to one Judy Funny.
Yes, that's Billy West. Let's just say that the last of the 3 original Nicktoons was the best one. Each one was better than the last. Rugrats being in the middle makes perfect sense, since that one is not as good as Ren and Stimpy, but better than Doug. By the way, the new voice for Doug, Chris Phillips, actually does a good job being a replacement in Season 5. I had a hard time telling the difference. Doug is too much of a loser and too pathetic to enjoy. Yes, Doug, repeatedly sign shit that you don't read because you're a love sucker or an idiot. No, not or, and an idiot! The rest of Doug's family is not much better for the record. I guess his sister Judy is a little bit interesting, like on how she wants to be a famous movie actress, and how she'll even fake being sick for Doug's sake just so she can practice her acting. But there are times where she can be bossy and a show-off and an asshole overall. And no cartoon would be complete with the older sister taking advantage of her younger brother. Like almost every fucking cartoon that came out after Doug! Then again, after the Loud House, this cliche seemed to have stopped. And the parents are just the parents. I mean, the dad is a photographer and they moved here because he got a new job involving cameras. I guess that's something. When the family is not good, you need to hope for a good ensemble cast. And they got one guy right, and that is Mr. Dink. Mr. Dink is funny because he's the only character taking advantage of the fact that he's in a cartoon. Plus, he's charming. Honestly, I prefer if the show was about him than Doug. Like everyone else, tries to be as realistic as possible, and ironically enough, I think that's why they fail. Not because reality is always sucky, but because Doug tries to go after the parts in reality that no one cares for. Skeeter is dumb. He's just annoying with his dumb little sound effects. Which is ironic because the guy that does him, Fred Newman, is an actual talented person. He was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit as a weasel named Stupid. He also worked with Jim Henson on The Muppets. My point is, this guy is talented, but his talent is wasted here. Not even his pork chop role was funny. His Mr. Dink role was funny, but that was it. Roger Klotz is your greaser bully. This is a 90s show, but he looks like he came from the 50s. At the beginning of Season 5, he does become rich, but they don't do much else different with him. BB is your stereotypical rich bitch, and blames all her problems on her mommy. Why yes, Doug, I have seen My Little Pony. I never liked it when My Little Pony did this either. And to end off our characters is Patty Mayonnaise. I specifically am talking about her last because she is blander than staring at real mayonnaise. Characters existing as nothing but love cliches is pointless. It's the same problem that I had with Stella from the Loud House. A character that exists as a love plot at first, and then becomes blander than white bread. Patty Mayonnaise, which is a stupid name by the way, is more or less the girl. The 20th century version. As in the one that exists to fall in love with our main boy, regardless if they are nice to each other or not, and has girly interests like dolls, ponies, or dresses. Something that boys would not like, stereotypically. Then again, I prefer this cliche over the 21st century cliche of the girl, who shouts it to the rooftops and acts all progressive. I prefer someone to state, I'm a girl, rather than shout, I'm a girl. Oh wait, Patty has one thing going for her. She gets mad at Doug for not doing anything wrong. He throws a rock at an old abandoned house. A house where a guy that walks gives permission to throw rocks. And of course, this is the one time that Doug is actually kind of cool and makes me even actually like him. Hell, the bully Roger even loves Doug doing this. Even Baby wanted a damn autograph from Doug, at first. Yet Patty has a problem with this. If this was a stable house, it'd be one thing. But Doug destroys an entire abandoned house with one rock. That's pretty impressive. And this is an episode on all about the failure of communication. I have been there. Oh, by the way, Doug didn't even destroy her house. It was actually an old neighbor. That's the only reason why she forgives him. Gee, Patty. Maybe next time tell Doug what he did wrong, instead of forcing him to figure it out himself. Once again, I've been there, so I feel bad for Doug here. The dialogue of this show is not good.
You know, being a slave has its ups and downs.
Wow, that would not air today. This episode's called, and this isn't a YouTube poop title, Doug is slave for a day. They can't even be grammatically correct with that title there.
I'd like 3 double cheeseburgers.
What on earth are you trying to say?
My family is starving and I...
Yo, man, let me take care of this. The new kid wants 3 moo cows, 1 no cukes, 1 no stickers.
Oh boy, this joke. See, this only works when the employees are saying these complex nonsense just to the other employees themselves, like their own slang. It doesn't work when you have to talk like this to the customers, as any normal person would be just as confused as Doug. A show like Jimmy Neutron can make this work because Carl and Sheen are only talking to each other. And also, even Sheen is smart enough to talk normally to a customer.
Yeah, I'd like a deluxe McSpank.
Give me a clown with a hair lip.
Doing the tango or whacking the goose?
Hold on. You want a dollar salad?
Yeah.
He's packing light.
Well, I'm funny.
He's not funny. I guess we could talk about the Disney buyout now. The Walt Disney Company decided to buy the rights to Doug shortly after it bought ABC in 1996. Jim wanted this because he didn't want to be the third wheel behind Ren and Stimpy and Rugrats. He wanted Doug to be successful on its own, especially since his show was the first Nicktoon, and he thought that being first should automatically make you the most successful. It was a bit of a hectic start. For starters, the show went from New York City to Los Angeles for production, as Disney is headquartered in California, and Nickelodeon was much smaller at the time. This is why Billy West didn't return to voice Doug. Did Jim like this change? Not really. From what I gather, his staff preferred the Nickelodeon version, and Jim couldn't have as much creative control due to finances. He tried his best to keep Billy West as Doug, but it didn't work. When Doug went to Disney in 1996, the show made some changes. Ironically enough, the season 5 premiere was about him going to middle school. For starters, the biggest change was making the 11-minute episodes into 22-minute episodes. While the original did have a couple of half-hour specials, like the pilot and the holiday episodes, it was mostly just an 11-minute show. The 22-minute change that Disney made unfortunately did not make things better. Actually, it didn't make things worse per se. It kinda stayed the same. Ironically enough, considering that Disney gave Doug a baby sister. Oh, speaking of baby sister, yes, Disney gave Doug a little sister. Because one sister was just not good enough for Disney.
I'm exposing dirt bike to Shakespeare. See? Shakespeare. La, la, la.
What's her name?
We decided to use the names you and Judy came up with.
Our names?
Douglas, Judy, meet Cleopatra Dirt Bike Funny.
You really wanted to talk to me about sex?
Oh, yes.
I learned all that stuff in school.
You did?
Yeah, sure. You see, when a man and a woman love each other...
I heard that fans of Doug love the Nickelodeon version and hate the Disney version, but I gotta be honest, I don't get the difference. It's like someone claiming that these two things look different, but are more or less honestly the same thing. Nobody really talks about Doug anymore, and that's probably for the better. I mean, Chip and Dale's 2022 movie referenced Doug, but that movie also referenced Big Mouth, so anything goes in that film. I guess we can finish this DuckTales to DuckTales episode talk about Doug's first movie. It's bland, not really interesting to talk about. Here's a funny thing about it. It's more funny than the actual movie. It was planned to be a home video release titled the first Doug movie, Stamp, ever! But due to the Rugrats movie doing so well in theaters, it was put on the big screen at the last minute.
You really want sex?
Oh, yes.
Next.
Thank you for watching this video.
This video was edited by me, Dar.
The following people I want to thank personally for supporting me on Ko-fi. I wouldn't be able to do these videos without you guys. If you want your name in the credits, please support me on Ko-fi. At $20 a month, your name goes into my videos. Plus, you get access to my own Discord. You must be 18 or older to join. Hit the previous episode to see the previous episode of DuckTales to DuckTales, and next to go to the next episode. We hope you guys will stay and watch the entire marathon. Rebecca Starlight, out.